On this episode of the Pit Therapy Podcast, we talk about the band Conditions. We talk a lot about what makes or breaks a band and why some really good bands just didn't take off. Thanks for jumping on, and let's open this pit up.
Somebody hit somebody!
Hey guys, welcome to the Pit Therapy Podcast. I am Josh. I'm here with Kyle and Trevor. How you guys doing?
Good, man.
I'm doing pretty good.
You guys going to any shows this week? Any shows recently? What have you guys been doing?
Well, I went to No Bragging Rights and Wonder Years last week, and then next week is Stick to Your Guns for me. So I'm trying to make it out to that one. I don't know 100% if I'm going to be able to go,
Yeah.
but yeah, I'm going to try to.
We also have Stick to Your Guns next Tuesday. Dude, Tuesday here in Utah is crazy. So there's Stick to Your Guns with Comeback Kid. There's Anxious going on. Parkway's here. And then I read there's someone else at the Union too.
Really?
There's like 4 shows from like our scene all happening at the same time. But the Stick to Your Guns is sold out. So.
Yeah. Yeah, that's at that small venue. I had a buddy of mine said he went and saw, I think Bad Omens came through here last weekend. He said that was pretty good. I'm
Might be
going
the
to
only
that.
one to say that.
I'm going to that sheer terror, right? I'm going to that Sheer Terror and Slapshot show on Friday, so that'll be really cool. I don't know if they've ever played here. If they have, it was way before my time of ever going to shows. So, but I think that'll be sweet. That's at Ace's High Saloon. It's like a little bar, so should be interesting.
Where's it at? Like, where's the bar at?
It's in Salt Lake. To be honest with you, I'm not 100%. I think it's just like South Salt Lake somewhere or Midvale. I don't know. Anything past like the point of North Salt Lake is just Salt Lake to me. And then anything past Bluffdale is just Utah County. It's all Provo. They're all BYU fans. They all suck.
Yep.
What time is that one at?
I think 7. I bought my ticket months ago.
Yeah.
Because it's not a big venue. And the last time like a bigger, older hardcore band came through like that, like it sold out really fast. And that was Judge. They played here in 2017. They actually had to move it to a bigger venue to like open up the ticket span. And what a wild thing to see, because it wasn't like young kids, right? So like I was like, maybe like 100 people. It was packed with like 400 people.
Really?
Like 40-year-old
crazy.
dudes, like people I've never seen before. And I'm like, this is weird.
Yeah.
You know, it was like everybody like holding out for that one show. Like, finally, I'm coming back.
Coming out of
That's
Mosh
sick.
retirement.
Yeah, seriously.
Sure.
I have that shirt in the Hate Breed
Oh, really?
logo. Yeah.
Sick. Dude, my knees are still
gonna-
sore from coming out of Mosh retirement last week. So
Are you going to try to figure out how to go to Stick to Your Guns, Comeback Kid?
So the hard part for me, it's on a Tuesday, and I do powerlifting stuff Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. And even though like I'm done with my training, I usually have to stay and help other people on the team.
why don't you go to Stick to Your Guns and then pick people up and just throw them out of the building?
That's true.
That'll
I would really like to go. I kind of wish I would have jumped on buying tickets. Actually, a member of ours from that powerlifting group is actually going, so might get stuck helping his wife. I don't know.
Really quick, that other show that's coming through on Tuesday here is Nothing Nowhere, See You Space Cowboy, Static Dress in Unity, Texas.
Where's that one at?
That's the Union Center.
That's okay. That's
Do you guys like Unity, Texas?
Nah,
I've never heard of him.
they're fine. They're just meh.
It's like new metal, and he like raps.
Yeah.
He actually is a rapper, isn't he? Doesn't he have like?
I think so. I mean, that kind of stuff, it's not really what I'm into. I don't really care for new metal in general, and then the rapping vocals on top. It's like Hollywood Undead.
Hollywood Undead. I haven't heard that name in a while.
Yeah,
Terrible band.
reason not to like them. So
They're just stuck
Seriously.
with Lorraine Drive.
They used to dress up and stuff too, didn't they?
yeah, they wore the masks.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
like encompassed everything I hated growing up.
Yeah.
So
Have you guys been listening to anything new? What have you guys been listening to?
Dude, finally this week, I listened to a ton of new stuff this week, but I also didn't have 13 albums to go through this time. So today, Dying Wish just put out their new EP. super solid. Listen to Neck Deep. I sent that to you guys. What else? I sent you guys a few. While I'm pulling it up, what have you guys been
Yeah.
listening to?
So Anxious just dropped a new song.
Anxious, yep.
It's super good. I actually heard him play it last week when I saw him. It's awesome. Weekend Nachos is reportedly coming back.
That's weird.
Have you listened to them?
I saw them at Rainfest in 2012.
Yeah, there's like some
11 years
rumors
ago.
that they're coming back. So
I think they were just on Hard Lore, or they're going to be on Hard Lore with those guys.
yeah,
And so I think that's kind of the announcement time, if it hasn't already happened. But then Year of the Knife, they just dropped 2 new songs. One with
Well, that's
Bog
cool.
and one with, who was the other vocalist? One with Bog and one with the guy from Full of Hell. So,
I haven't really kept up on any updates.
dude, there's tons.
yeah.
This
Crime
week
and
was big.
Stereo. Crime and Stereo dropped another one. Oh, here's a band. Have you guys checked out 68?
Yes, I was listening to him today.
Yeah, they're dope. They're from the Chariot, right?
Yeah, and the original Norma Jean vocalist.
Yeah.
That'd be cool.
It is so good. And it's the same kind of like just chaotic energy that you got from like the first Norma Jean album. Yeah, you should definitely check them out, Josh. I think you'd really like them.
It's funny, like, you know, like we've talked about like how like traditional like breakdowns and stuff. I feel like that's kind of how we all got into it. And like I just kind of strayed away from that and kind of got more into stuff like Norma Jean the Chariot or like Chamber. And that to me is like now pronounces so much like being heavier, but like it's not very understandable most of the time. I
Yeah.
don't know if it's like
Yeah.
the math metal that makes sense in my head, but a buddy of mine sent me a single by this band called Relate. The song's called Linger. It's actually really good. It's just like rock music. But yeah, I've never heard of this band.
Late.
It seems like they've just kind of dropped a few singles, but don't have an actual like CD or a record. So,
Okay.
but
Is it just a cover of the Cranberries? Linger?
I thought the same thing. But speaking
Well,
of
they
covers,
won't beat them. So
yeah, nothing will beat the Raspberries or
the Raspberries.
Sorry, I've been canning way too much the last couple weeks. The Raspberries, dude.
Nice.
Speaking of covers, this will kind of get us into what we're going to talk about today. The band Conditions. Did you guys get to listen to their covers at all?
Listen to every single song they put out.
I mean, it's not many. So
That's what I'm saying. Like last week we listened to Alkaline. They had 9 albums to go through. The week
Mhm.
before we did Dropkick, they had 11. So a 2-album week and a couple EPs. I had a lot of time on my hands.
Well, there's not much history with them either. Even the bands they came from weren't big bands either, you know? It's not like they came from big names or anything. They just kind of, yeah, it's weird.
Yeah, to be completely honest, man, I'd never heard of them until you said we were going to talk about them.
So, yeah, so they were formed in 2006, just from previous local bands, one called Motion Picture Demise, Race, The Sun, and Forever in a Day. Bands I've never even heard of. It's never come
And
up.
then Scarlet was where the vocalist was with too.
I think I've heard the name Scarlet, but I don't think I've actually ever listened to Scarlet.
I did today.
But it's weird. So they formed in 2006, but you know, then it shows that Fluorescent Youth didn't come out until 2010. So that's like 6-7 years. It says that they recorded material first in 2007, probably on some EPs. But Fluorescent Youth would be like their first, I guess, LP, what you could call it. What did you guys think about the band? Like, we can kind of bring all these records together because there's not many. What you like, what you don't like, to me, like, I feel like I have a hard time making sense why this band didn't stick out like bands like Seosin. I don't know if it's just like a missed timeline that they just entered in the realm a couple years too late, because I think all the songs to me are flawless. But what do you guys think?
Man, I thought the music was all right. I think that I'm a little biased listening to them, and we get into this with a lot of bands to where it's like it's not bad music, but I've heard it before.
Right.
I think you're spot on with like it's just a time issue, a timing problem. 2006, I feel like 2010 really, right?
Right.
Is when they like actually release stuff. And I've heard all that stuff before,
Right.
you know. So I thought the music was good. The album Full of War,
Mm-hmm.
it's a good album. You know, I would have listened to it back in the day if they were around that time, but
Mm-hmm.
I just by 2010 I was well past that
Yeah.
stuff, you know.
You've moved on.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same way. I really like it actually. It's a band that I would listen to going forward and everything. I had heard of them before, mostly just from I knew you liked them. I think you had mentioned them to me before, but it wasn't a band that I was like deeply into or really even listened to. Maybe a song here and there,
Mm-hmm.
but I listened to all of it and it's good music. Like I like it and everything. But had they put Fluorescent Youth out in 2006 when they started, I
Mm-hmm.
think the story would have been significantly different with this band because I think that
Okay.
they're literally 4 years too late.
Yeah.
By just doing it in 2010 instead of 2006, they missed their window right there.
That's the only thing that I can like come up with because like you say like you're listening to it's actually really good. I would have listened to this back in the day and you're like, you know, to me it was just like crap. I almost wonder if it is just like a 3 years too late kind of a deal, you know?
Yeah.
That's the thing. Like they have Fluorescent Youth, they have Full of War, they have the self-titled Conditions, even their cover songs, everything off of Missing Hours. Like even as they've progressed, like they say they're still a band today. Like I haven't really been like, man, now that album was absolute trash. Like should have stopped there. You know what I mean? No, it's a good album, but it's like I've heard it before, but like no, it's good. So it's just weird.
So what's to you, Josh, like what makes them stick out so much to you? Because I mean, you compare them to things like a Seosin or I mean, I even would say like I'd listen to Ivory Line before or Anne Berlin before them or
Right.
even and see it actually sorry, I asked you a question and I'm not letting you answer it, but
No, you're good.
this just kind of popped in my mind of like even later bands I got into later, like Hands Like Houses,
Mm-hmm.
later Emarosa, like post Johnny Craig.
Yep.
Like I would still listen to that over these guys.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if like Hands Like Houses to me with their first album reminds me a lot of these guys, but it just sounded so much more unique.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like the Almost. I would listen to the Almost before I'd listen to these guys. And maybe it's because, you know Aaron and you have this background with Aaron and in Underoath and stuff. And maybe that's part of like the equation here of why they missed the mark is
Right.
there's no deep history in a band like Aaron from the Almost. There's no super unique, sound coming from another country like Hands Like Houses. There's no background with Johnny Craig and Emarosa. You know what I mean? I don't know.
When I was fresh out of high school, I was playing in that band Automary before we
I was going to
disbanded.
say, this sounds very much like something you would have been playing with.
Right. So I think I've got kind of a biased attachment to it. So before I was in Automary, they had released it's like a 4-song EP of I can't remember. It was like I think it was 4 or 5 songs. I think it was 4. But anyway, that was released in 2008, and it never really went anywhere. The music was really good. I just don't think, as far as getting it promoted, was really pushed that hard. So anyway, like it was actually Kurt, the other guitar player, had been like, "Hey, you need to check this band out. You should listen to this riff." And we were listening to the riff from, I think it's When It Won't Save You. It's like after like the intro and it starts in. That is literally note per note of what we had written in jamming in high school. There was a band we had, I would call it a band. There was like some jamming friends we had, and we had written this whole song, and like we had the whole chorus, and it was literally note per note, like drums, everything the exact same. So we were like, okay, we were on the right track because like these guys did it. It like kind of took off, but not really. And I'm like, crap, like they beat us to it. You know what I mean? So I think I kind of listened to it as like, if Autumn would have kept going, we probably would have released something along these lines. But I think naturally from 2008 even to 2010, there were such drastic changes in music that like there was a huge shift to like, okay, now let's go heavier, and like how to go heavier and not be cheesy, you know. And I think defining bands like Under Oath, you know, changed their sound from They're Only Chasing Safety to Define the Great Line. Two very different sounding records, but both records are just insanely good.
Yeah.
I think with the Almost, like you say, like, or even bands like Johnny Craig, any band he's ever been a part of has taken off, but I think it has the following of like, oh, this is Johnny Craig's new project.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, this Dance Gavin Dance. This is Emerosa. This is what's that other one that he's in? The last one.
It was Slaves, but Rinsey
Slaves.
Drive Now.
Yep. So
I didn't even know he was playing still.
He's not. No, that's the band that he started and again got kicked out of.
Or even his solo project, you know, Johnny Craig, you know.
Oh, that album was dope.
You know, maybe they're just like as a big following with these kinds of bands. I mean, some of the other bands we've talked about have almost evolved from other bands or have taken on members from other bigger bands, so they pull more influence and more crowd of like, hey, the guitar for this band just went and joined this band.
Yeah.
Yep.
Check it
Yeah.
out.
One thing I'll say before we get too far in here is I want to say respect to you, Josh, that could go from writing music that sounds like Conditions to writing music in Crow Killer. Man, it could not be like any different. But that, dude, seriously, man, respect, because that's impressive that you have that type of musical prowess. And you know,
We've got to go through a Josh discography at some point.
we really
in time.
should.
Because, like, honestly, I've listened to all of your bands and
Mhm.
I've liked all of your bands, but there is so much variation. Like you said, from Autumnary to Crow Killer is the most extreme. But you had, what was it called? Lowlands at one point in
Lowlands.
time.
I have a
Hands
low
of the Martyr at one point.
Hands of the Martyr, Deidre, Here She Lies,
Oh, Deidre, dude.
Close grip.
Close
Is
Grip,
that close grip?
Take Over. That doesn't Take Over for a little bit,
Yeah.
but
Like, dude, you have gone so many directions and everything.
mhm.
And that's why I love having you on this, honestly, too, though, is at this point in time, I think everyone knows you who does know you for Crow Killer.
Mhm.
But we know you from your long hair emo days.
Oh yeah.
That's the Josh that we love. So
Yeah, I didn't want to derail, but I wanted to throw that out there because
Right.
respect, man. That's crazy.
Appreciate it.
Looking back on these guys, I know we talked a little bit, and I don't mean to like jump the gun or anything, but we were talking a little bit about tours that they had done. They toured with some huge bands, though.
Mhm.
okay. So this is where I think they got lost in everything.
And I agree with this. So
Okay.
go for it.
Okay. So they're like, I mean, obviously small tours when they first got started, but 2008, so before a full length comes out, Paramore picks them up to go out on tour with them. They're on tour with Newfound.
Yeah.
They're playing huge shows to the scene in 2008, 2009, and everything like that. Basically unknown. So, sure, they have an EP and stuff like that. But I think had they had Fluorescent Youth or had they had a full length out at the time, that also would have been a huge stepping stone for them going into the right direction.
So you think they jumped the gun?
Yes.
You think they what's that dumb saying? They put the cart before the horse.
Yes.
Mhm.
I 100% think so. I think
mean,
that
that-
people probably liked them. They
Yeah.
probably were really interested in them, and there wasn't anything to go find.
Exactly. I mean, we've talked about that how many times on this podcast of like back in these days, you know, we didn't have Spotify or Apple Music. It was you literally listened to people by having their CD in a giant binder that you're flipping through while you're driving, trying not to die, putting CDs in a CD player, right?
Exactly.
But I mean, you go see Paramore, you go see Newfound Glory. They played Warped Tour, and you don't have an album for people to buy. We brought up on the pod, like last pod, about seeing The Ghost Inside,
Right. And buying the
Before
album.
and buying the album. And
Right.
that's what set it off. And I've listened to every single Ghost Inside album, and they're massive.
Right.
You know? They're not all good, but I've listened to them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and maybe you're right, Trevor. That's such a good point.
Where are you going with this, Josh? Because I know that you have kind of the same thoughts.
I was looking for this tour and I can't find it, but I could
I've
be
got
wrong.
them all. So you tell me which one you're looking for. I typed them all out.
It was either in 2011 or from 2010 or 2012. They came to Utah.
So that was 11. You had the AP tour, Black Veil Brides, Drugs, Icy Stars, Versa Emerge, Conditions.
Nope.
2010 was Haste the Day, Oh Sleeper, Our Last Night, Conditions.
That's a weird. That's a weird
one.
lineup to be on.
I don't think it was that one.
They came through a couple of times where they were like the headliner. Conditions, Lions Lion.
There's one with You Me at 6, Cute is What We Aim For.
Yeah, that one.
Maybe they got thrown on some random bill. I can't remember, but I remember I went to see them, but I want to say they played with like The Plot in You. It was something weird where like
that would have been the Haste the Day bill then. That was the heaviest bill they were on.
Well, I've only seen Haste Today once.
Oh,
It wasn't
weird.
with them. Anyway, let's put it this way. I just know the bill that they were on. I'm like, I know that band, but that is a very weird bill for them to be on.
Okay. So this was the other point I was going to make. I went through all the tours that were at least documented through the site that we use, and that was my thought on every single one. So let me run through these tours, right? So 2008's Paramore and Newfound. That's a fine tour. That's a good lineup for these guys. I think that they fit well in there. 2010, Haste the Day, Oh Sleeper, Our Last Night. You got to know the albums that these bands are touring off of are Haste the Day was Attack of the Wolf King, Oh Sleeper was Son of the Morning, and
Oof.
Our Last Night was We All Evolve.
Mm-hmm.
Conditions never should have been on that show.
Yeah, but okay, so in Conditions defense, when we saw Haste Today way back, they were with like Bed Light for Blue Eyes, which falls in that category. So I don't know if that's just like Haste Today's like, look, we're going to be a bunch of metalcore bands, and then one not so much.
Even mixed bill shows, though, you have some variation. That's like 3 straight metalcores. You know what I mean? To then have Conditions on there. Continuing on, though, 2011, There for Tomorrow, The Oceans, Life on Repeat. I think that this tour was the best lineup that Conditions could have been on. The most similar sounding bands, everything like that. Just talked about the AP tour with Drugs, Black Veil, Icy Stars, Versa Emerge. This one was super weird in 2013. Let Live, Harvard, This Is Hell, Rescuer. That
Harvard's
lineup
band.
is terrible.
Harvard's a band I haven't heard of in a long, long time.
Man, Let Live was so good.
Let Live was amazing.
Yeah, Let Live was cool.
This Is Hell, they're good,
Yeah.
right? But just like all the tours didn't fit. Like they just like they tried to do mix bill, but it just like wasn't even a good mix.
Maybe this is a point to make about the Paramore tour. So like when you're presented to be touring with a band like Paramore, I mean, when did they release Riot? 2007? 2006?
Somewhere in there.
Either
I'll look
way,
it up.
Paramore is in their prime. That is like the new female-fronted punk band that just made it huge, you know?
So sorry, here's one thing we're forgetting though. This tour with Paramore, they played one date in Alabama and the rest are in Europe. Is that what you saw too, Trevor?
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know that that's a U.S. tour. Maybe that changes it.
why?
Europe sucks anyways. Because
Whatever, it costs more to get a no-name band to Europe.
I'm just saying, like, that's not a full U.S. tour. Maybe that's, I mean, how many
I
people in
think-
Europe are like, woo, Paramore? And they're not
I
going to
think
some
it's
weird
more
EDM
impressive.
cybergoth festival.
Right.
I think it's more impressive to be on the European tour, honestly, as
Well,
a no-name.
Well, I think the important thing I think to note about it is they went on tour with Paramore, but probably obviously like this is like, hey, this is like our shot. This either
Yeah.
works or it doesn't, right?
Yeah, but shooting your shot in Europe, dude,
Right.
don't work.
But if they would have gotten a good response, they'd be on the same label as Paramore, and I guarantee that's why they got put on. It was like, let's bring them on and let's see how they do.
Yeah.
Because I guarantee Conditions would have gone the same route as Paramore of like, let's get a little bit bigger, and they honestly probably would have fit right in
Sure.
with the same roster. But for whatever reason, like you say, like they didn't have an EP, they didn't have anything, and maybe I'm just gonna say it, I'm just lazy. So like, if it's not easily for me to like get, then like I'm not really gonna seek it out unless it's like some nostalgic deal. So like,
Or drugs.
right, yeah. So I went and saw Thursday last year, right? Yeah, in 2022, and they had this opener. I can't even remember his name. This all kind of fits. I remember he was really good. I was really impressed. I remember taking video of it, and like I was like, man, this guy's really good. And then I got up to the merch table, and I'm like, I'll get a shirt, I'll get a CD. He had no shirts. All he had was records. I didn't have a record player.
Like vinyl records.
Yeah. There's nothing on Spotify, nothing on Apple Music. There's nothing. And I'm like, I'm not going to buy a record, a $40 record from some no-name guy I don't know.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm like, I would like to listen to it, maybe dive into it. So I was like, I'll just go home, look it up. And I tried to look him up, like couldn't find anything. And what sucks now is like, couldn't tell you
Crazy.
who it was, couldn't tell you anything about it. But maybe
So
that's
crazy.
Conditions, you know?
Yeah.
You
So-
could have seen him, but you would have been like, oh yeah, they were good, cool. Haste of Days
Yeah.
on next.
Exactly. I mean, how many openers were probably on tours that we saw that we were like, yeah, that was solid, that we just don't even know who they were at this point in time?
Yeah. Well, that's what I was going to ask is like, I mean, I know we've talked a lot about mixed bills on this stuff, but us three are pretty open-minded music people, right?
Mm-hmm.
If I'm seeing Haste Today, No Sleeper, which I was not in the country in 2010, so I missed that show. Like I've had all the Haste Today albums. I've had pretty much all the O Sleeper albums. I think some of those middle ones I kind of missed out on. The first couple are Last Night albums. If Conditions was good, I'd have bought their album at that tour. Like the mixed build wouldn't have bothered me. That wouldn't have stopped me from being like, oh, hey, these guys are sick. Like, even though I'm here to, windmill people to Haste Today, like this was cool. Like, I'll buy their album. I don't know how much, like, I get what we're saying about their tours, but I don't know how much any of that, other than the fact that you just literally couldn't buy it, is what stopped it. I don't think mixed bills hurt them at all.
But here's my thing is I wouldn't have gone to the Haste of the Day show. And then with Conditions coming on, I wouldn't have been in the right headspace to be like, oh yeah, that was good. Cause I was there for some metal,
dude.
Right.
See, but I don't believe you.
Dude, I like all that stuff, but if you have three bands who are all like that and that's what you expect from the night, then it just wouldn't have been the same. If they had two other bands who were like one Conditions and one other softer, maybe it's a different conversation.
Our Last Night is fine.
Yeah, but even that We All Evolve album, like it was metalcore. Whether or not you want to debate if Our Last Night is good, which they're not, but
I mean, I don't know, man. I know you're saying that like that's how you feel, and I disagree with you. I don't think you understand how you feel. Because I feel like we have done that. I feel like you have done that. I feel like we have gone to heavy shows and there has been like an acoustic performance before or something. And we've been like, yeah, I'm down with this. Let's go look at albums or merch or something.
Or like how many times have like you like gone to the show and you're like, I'll just get like the re-entry ticket. I'm going to go up to the mall and get some food.
Never done that. What are you talking about?
I used to do that all the time. Like,
and like miss all the openers?
Yeah, we're like, let's say like you show up and say the acoustic guy's playing, and you're like, yeah, this kind of sucks, And so you're like, yeah, we're just
everyone kind of wanders out. Yeah.
Yeah, you just kind of wander out. You're like, you're gonna go outside. You're gonna. I used to go up to the mall all the time and like eat at that sandwich shop, and then go back down and like watch the rest.
Even then, though, I don't feel like, and maybe I'm misremembering this. I don't think so. I think you guys are wrong, but
I don't know.
I feel like we were very cool about being at shows on time and watching all the openers.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, for sure. I
You know?
completely agree with
I know,
that.
like Josh is saying, there were a few times that we either missed or we would just leave because it was like absolutely terrible. Like if Hollywood Undead was on, I'd be like, yeah, I'm going to the mall. Which
Yeah.
you're probably just listening to Hollywood Undead at the mall too, which sucked.
But
yeah,
at least
like-
there you can eat some food.
Right. We would not have left for Conditions.
I would have listened to him. I'm not saying I wouldn't have listened to him, and I would have liked him. It's not a band I would have gone and bought the album for at that show.
I don't know. I might have because I
So-
probably already owned all the albums from the other bands playing.
That's true. Okay, so I found how they actually got on the Paramore show.
Okay.
So their second bass player was actually the guitar tech for Paramore.
Okay.
And so they were in town, they were playing in Tennessee, and he invited them. He was like, hey, come see my band play. They all went out and they were like, oh, cool. Like, this is a good band. Like, let's take them. And so they were able to snag them and take them with them. So it's about who you know. But this is kind of going back to what we're saying. They know people in the scene. They weren't known in the scene.
Deep.
There we go. Well, that's the kid, right?
Dude, seriously though. I mean, we've talked about other bands that played shows and festivals that they shouldn't have,
Mhm.
aka Title Fight. The difference there is like what Trevor's saying is that they are known in the scene, right?
Yeah.
So it's
They're
easier
known
to
in the
bridge
scene.
that gap.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I think it's probably important to note too that like while Paramore was at its peak around that time, Paramore also, there was a big chunk of years there where they disbanded because they were not getting along. So I mean, maybe that could have just been like just conflict on conflict on conflict.
So you think Conditions hitched to the wrong wagon
could
and
have.
that tanked them too?
I mean,
That's fair.
The more I've looked into these guys, I just feel like they did everything wrong. Like they were a good band and they just did everything wrong. I don't think their tours were right. The label they were on was not right for them. They were on Good Fight Music.
mhm.
That is a freaking heavy ass record label. And you have Conditions on there. And the only other band who's somewhat like them is Boys Night Out.
Mhm.
Everyone else is like old school hardcore punk, heavy metal. 68's actually on this label.
It brings up an interesting question that I wanted to ask you guys about then. I know we're talking about Conditions, but this happens a lot. Thinking about some of the bands that I would throw in to the same group here. Secret Lives of the Freemasons deserve to get big, didn't. Lower Definition
Yeah,
deserve
Lower
to get
Depth's a
big.
good one.
doesn't make any sense
Didn't.
to me. It's a great record, great for sure.
There's some of these like old solid state bands like the Overseer, great album, didn't get big. What do you have to do then? I mean, you probably have the most experience with this, but like where are these people missing? Especially, I mean, personally, I would say that like, Conditions music was not necessarily top tier in my opinion,
Right.
but a band like Lower Definition was unique.
Mhm.
Had a cool sound, fit a really cool niche of like post-hardcore that could sing and still have cool breakdowns, had a Johnny Craig cameo in a song or whatever.
Mhm.
So why doesn't a band like that just get massive?
So even with Johnny Craig doing his little part in the Lower Definitions, Johnny Craig wasn't big at that time either, though. I don't.
Yeah, it was Dance Gavin Dance time,
I mean,
huh?
even with Dance Gavin Dance, like, and probably get ridiculed here. I thought his vocals were really good in Dance Gavin Dance, but I thought Dance Gavin Dance's music was terrible, so it was really hard for me to listen to.
You've got
We-
such a problem with Dance
You
Gavin
should
Dance.
probably-
Yeah.
it's almost tall tees, man.
All T kids, dude, coming
You
back
can't
at
like
me.
him or his shirt's going to instantly start growing down to the floor.
Seriously, cover the old bag. Yeah, it was when he kind of started piling, to like Amorosa. I feel like when he released the first record with Amorosa, like his screaming vocals, like right at the beginning, it was like a whole new realm of like, oh man, okay, this dude can really belt. But I think, like, to get back on point, I think a lot of it really comes down to like how, like, being relevant in your own scene and knowing people that like trust you. So like, okay, they had the connection with Paramore, right? But it was just kind of like a favor. So you could almost make an assumption like maybe they're on Good Fight. Is that the label?
Yeah.
maybe they're on Good Fight because somebody else knows somebody at the label and they're on it. They don't really match, but like they're just kind of doing it to like help them out, but it's not really being pressed as like, yeah, let's get these guys big. Like if you look at hardcore bands, like it's a lot easier to lump them back east because the states are a lot smaller. But like, you know, you have Pain of Truth, you have Madball, you have Vain, you have Jesus Piece, you have Shattered Realm, a mix of like big older bands, big newer bands. But like outside of all the band stuff, they're all friends because they all came from the same community.
Right.
Where you view it as this is a sick tour that's coming through, they view it as I'm just hanging out with my friends.
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
And so I think that in my opinion, like comes above all instead of just trying to put the best tour you can together. And you feel it too. I mean, you can't tell me like when you go to a show, you can tell if the bands are getting along or not. And
Yeah.
it like sets like the tone of the show the entire night.
That's, you know, dude, that's such an interesting thing that you just said about being involved in your scene. I think is what really can propel you.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like we're going to see a lot of that here in the next few years of all these kids that just got into this music because they saw it on TikTok and have not been in their scene.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to be superficial. It's not going to be real. And it's probably going to just fizzle out and die, kind of like how these guys did. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. It's funny.
I don't know like the background of these guys to know if they have any, like, you know, what they have in their scene and stuff. But you look at some of these bands like Thursday, like that dude has done more for like New Jersey hardcore than anyone else, you know, and look at how massive his band is because
Right.
of like what they've done in the scene.
Well, and it's funny too, because like you have like, so I have a Thursday crew neck and it says NJHC, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you're like, you kind of think you're like, Thursday isn't really like a hardcore band, right? But like they're definitely hardcore kids in a band, right? So it's like, nah, they can have that on their shirt. They've earned it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I mean, it's the same with Taking Back Sunday.
exactly.
Long Island.
You know, or even bands like, it doesn't necessarily have to be hardcore bands. I think just bands that are involved in their own scene, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I think it shows in their music. You know, I think it shows some authenticity and genuineness in their music.
Well,
And some of these bands,
the vocals feel more real when they're actually kind of talking about it, and then you can relate because you're part of your scene too, and you're like, okay, we relate to this, right?
I don't know enough about this band to be like, no, they didn't show up for their scene enough growing up, and maybe.
So
maybe
this
that's
is
why,
one
but-
other thing that I found interesting. I was reading just on Brooklyn Vegan, that website, and they were talking about the new wave of post-hardcore. I mean, where would you have categorized these guys?
Just rock, like emo rock, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not categorizing them as post-hardcore.
But like
Maybe
on a website, do you
rock or
think that they
something.
would have though?
I think
No.
it would depend on who wrote the article, because if you have distortion in your amp, some people think that's all metal, you know. But
I don't know. I think that just knowing the bands who they were kind of related to, who people associated them with, the Seosins, you said it, Ivory something.
Ivory Line.
Ivory Line, but
Line.
Ivory Line, no. Saleson's probably the only one though that you would categorize as post-hardcore. The rest of them are just rock.
I would say
Ivory Line's just rock.
post rock, because like when you say rock, I'm thinking like Breaking Benjamin, but
Yeah,
like, maybe
yeah.
like post rock, you know,
It was
Or
something.
hard rock. What about
But-
hard rock? Cafe.
hard rock.
So I found an article, right, on Brooklyn Vegan talking about the new wave of post-hardcore bands and how 2012 was a massive time in the scene for these bands. This is when, like, what are they called? Touche Amore came out, Defeater came out,
Metal Fight.
pianos like Teeth, Title Fight, La Dispute, like all of those bands released like groundbreaking records all at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
A band like Conditions wasn't part of that. They weren't even in the same realm as that. You know what I mean? So I think that like if you're going to try to go after a scene, they didn't fit in with the way that the scenes were going. They didn't fit in on post-hardcore. They didn't fit in on pop punk. There wasn't really a scene for them, yet they were trying to tour with the scene bands.
Well, and Seosin at that time, who knows what singer they have on any given day. Sometimes it's Anthony Green, sometimes it's Cove. So they weren't really active doing anything. Bands like Amber Limb were on like weird tours and they were starting to fizzle out. Like they weren't becoming relevant anymore. So it's almost just kind of like it died out. It's weird.
Yeah, there wasn't an audience for this kind of music.
Mm-hmm.
It's not bad music. It's actually good. There wasn't an audience for it.
I agree with what Trevor's saying. I wonder if that sound just kind of went away.
Full length on that Paramore tour, and it could be a game changer for these guys.
Yeah, that's probably, if I'm thinking about like the Y in the road, the fork in the road, I think that's more than just the time, especially because how many bands would have just like absolutely killed to be on a tour with Paramore?
Right.
Well, that's hard to say.
But if you don't have an album to sell people, no one's ever going to remember you.
But
even if it is in Europe.
Well, yeah.
Can you imagine though, like
if
it was like you, if you're like, hey, I gotta make an album, and like a band like that hey, we want you to come tour with us, and we're gonna take you to Europe, and you're like, album.
I'd literally go to Target and buy like the disc we used to burn CDs with, and I would just make my freaking own and be like, yeah, I'm gonna bring something to sell.
No, like they had to do it, right? Like there wasn't a question whether they were going to tour or not, and they had an EP. They had like a 4-song EP, but how often did we have 4-song EPs in the car, other than the Memphis Mayfire EP, basically?
Or Scarlet Drive EP.
We played a show in Arizona once, and the fest that we played had all the bands listed on the back of the shirt. Well, they spelt Close Grip wrong. And
how do you spell
that? I don't know how you messed that up. You did. I can't remember what it said. I think they were missing an E or something like that. I don't know. It was Closer Grip.
Closer Grip.
Yeah. And I never got a shirt. They sold out of them, but I was laughing so hard, and Brad was so mad. He was livid. Well, so we did the same thing. So we quickly recorded like an EP before he went down, and we like went and bought like a stack of burnt CDs.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we didn't finish writing like Close Grip on all of them, and so me and Mike were like taking them and writing like Closet Grip, Closed Grip. It's like misspelling
whatever,
and like giving them to people. And Brad caught on, and he was like, "You're done. You're not writing anymore."
I could see Brad doing that. I could also see Brad just punching you in the face for doing that too.
He definitely wanted to. I was laughing so hard. I'm like, sorry.
Oh man.
But
so just kind of wrapping this up. So really interesting things. Okay. This band has a couple things still happening today that are pretty interesting. First, I found an article. They did a 5-year tour or a 5-year reunion show of Fluorescent Youth, and they interviewed the guitarist. And he basically said, we just felt like we'd hit a ceiling. We wrote music. We toured relentlessly for 8 years. And in between, we always had to work odd jobs between just to make ends meet. So we got burnt out. We decided to hang it up rather than drag it on and ending ugly like a lot of bands do. So kudos to them, because we've talked a lot about bands who have gone too far past their prime.
Yeah.
And like their albums are all good. They didn't put out bad music. Like kudos to them. Today, that guitarist is the guitarist or bass player for Jelly Roll. Okay. You guys know who Jelly Roll is?
No. Yeah.
He's like the biggest country star right now. Mm-hmm. Look up Jelly Roll, bro. He's pretty legit. But yeah, no, he's a bass player for Jelly Roll and selling out massive stadiums. I think he posted they sold out like a 18,000 capacity stadium the other night.
One of their guitarists is the touring guitarist for Sleeping with Sirens.
That's this guy.
Oh, that's this guy?
That's this guy. Mm-hmm. So he's living it, man. He took some time off. So he went from this to Sleeping with Sirens to, did you guys ever listen to the rap band Hoodie Allen?
No.
Give Hoodie Allen a listen. And then to Jelly Roll, he made it. But he grew up in Tennessee. Tennessee is a close-knit music community. And so he was able to slip in and freaking still crushing it, man. So kudos.
Yeah, that's cool.
It's interesting. it's cool to kind of hear like where members go, you know, like when they're
Yeah.
done, that they're still involved in music and not like, yeah, like this, like the old Scarlet Drive drummer is like if somebody posts it, he's like their mailman.
We talked about that.
Yeah,
We talked
like
about
dude, living the life, I guess.
UPS and FedEx drivers.
I was like, last time I seen you, you couldn't even stand up straight. So, well, anyway, well, this has been cool. Yeah, Condition's a band that disappeared and never really made it, and it's just weird. So
Yeah. If
I wanna-
anyone has any memories or experiences with Conditions, let us know. We want to hear it.
Or other bands. Like, I want to know other bands who are like this. What bands were in the scene that just didn't get enough credit? Maybe 2 albums deep and then just disappeared. Secret Lives of the Freemasons is a really good call out because there is zero information on those guys. Like,
amazing.
they were all murdered or something because
They're
they're
amazing,
gone.
dude. Well, I just messaged the guy.
I want to have to be able to YouTube the records.
They have to be on Spotify or Apple Music.
It's on Spotify, but not Apple Music. Friggin' stupid Apple. But don't worry, I've got a message pending to the Singer of Thursday to fix that.
we will pester.
Yep, I'm gonna get blocked.
Cool.
Anyway, sweet.
Cool, guys. Well, this was fun.
Yeah, we'll catch you next week.
Yep, see ya.
Peace.